Good evening, greetings, guten Tag, Talafalava. This is your most trusted friend, Dr. Snow Brown, speaking to you all. It's nice to catch up with you all, especially my Snowkin Club congregation, SEC1, SEC2, and the Knights and Chiefs. That's correct, the 150 Days War program that is going on at the moment. That is going to finish on the 23rd of December at 12 p.m. noon, New Zealand time. Now, as for the 6RA rules, well, that's going to finish when? On the 16th of December. That's great, that date, at around about at the same time, 10 p.m. at night. That's correct. So, and of course, I urge you now that I won't be teaching those rules on my church TV anymore. That those rules are specifically for my private monarch, for the reborn Christians, for those that are worthy. So they might be pastors and sheeps, Christians from other denominations. That's correct. Remember, this is now a place, my Crystal Kingdom Church TV, the Snowkin Club congregation. That's right, it is open to sheeps and shepherds from other flocks of the God family flocks of Jesus from other Christian denominations. So yes, this is a new meek church. That's correct. It's meek like a child. But now you'll have to buy my play. You'll have to buy my play. That's correct. Because I won't be giving you the rules like I used to. You have to buy it like a manual. So if you want to be my student, to become a snow sheep and a snow shepherd and be part of my ministry, not my private monarch, but my ministry, that's correct, you will need to buy my play, the Chief Ichibam and Queen Snow Brown play. That's correct. That is a great incentive for you all. That's correct. Because, well, after all, if you're not going to make any donations, I don't like to think that you're going to take advantage of me. And I think it's time that you all step up. Well, let's just say, grow up. That's right. And buy the play, because that is the manual for my ministry, for my church TV. That's correct. Or for Crystal Kingdom. Because I've been applying the rules at the moment. And I'm still showering with lemons. That's like half a lemon a day, without any in cold shower for about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. That's correct. So it's been good, and I'm drinking water. I've been drinking water throughout, although there have been perhaps 1 or 2 days where I have actually taken a break, and this was during the mock exam before the final. Where I actually enjoyed a treat of soft drink with my fish and chips. That's correct. So what am I going to preach to you all now? Right now, this evening. Well, this special video is specifically for my Looney Tune rallies, or my rallies. Dad's side of the family, that is the Trevorianas, and the rest of everybody else, but more so the Trevorianas family, with the bad connections and the Bakers. That's correct. Where I have received many atrocities and many harmful protocols from, that I did not deserve as a new member of the clergy, as a new clergyman. That's correct. And even as a noble, and even as a full royal. My goodness gracious. And even when went out of my way, gave them ample warnings, like too many warnings. Yeah, it felt like I was talking to air, talking to bad air, or nothing at all. That's correct. Where I served trespass notices with conditions. And I even said a farewell letter, dated the 14th. So on the 14th of November, 2019, you said goodbye. You said goodbye to your dad's side of the family, the Trevorianos, and that includes the Webster. That's right, and that also include, that's right, the Bakers especially. with the M&B brackets, bad connections. My cousin's side of the family. And yet they still continue, with their evils. They still continue with the arbitrary dictatorships. And I'm wondering, where is this all coming from? That's correct. Because after all, hey, I didn't grow up in a gang-affiliated organization. I don't remember my dad ever wearing red. That's correct. Or ever being patched. I don't see any of us 7 kids ever wanting to seek to go down to their so-called headquarters. That's correct. I don't remember anything. In fact, I don't even have any contact details to contact any of their associates, let alone to make communications with them. I don't even have any details or contact details. That's correct. I suddenly realized, especially in the last 8 years living at this address, that's correct, where I would seek out their associates or their members, where I would contact them to blah, blah, blah. I think it's been the other way around. They haven't left you alone. Your cousin's side of the family is seriously, there's something very disturbing about that family. That's great. The Baker side of the family. Your cousin's dad is a sociopath. That's correct. Straight up. And a maniac lunatic. But I mean, hey, when you've got those bad connections, those evil doers, that's correct, in the background, and also dictating, well, I don't blame you. I don't blame your family being a slave. That's correct. But you see, the problem with you guys, in order to protect your own skins, you decided to throw me under the truck, didn't you? Or dictate to our family. That's correct. So you went along and you became part of the elite. That's correct. By of course, rubbing skin with them, fucking the shit out of them. That's correct. I wouldn't be surprised. And then suddenly you think that you can, you're mighty high and up there in the sky. Now you can dictate to our family. But you see, our family are a royal family. We're a full royal family, I've discovered. We're actually a royal family. That's great. And I am a full royal. Out of the seven of us, I'm the only one who ascended to a throne and ascended to a kingdom, and a kingdom, and also, officially, am also a king. That's correct. I've discovered I'm a meek king. In a meek kingdom. That's correct. And you dare dictate to us as though we ought to be dictated to by a bunch of commoners who have more with the criminals and the outlaws and jailbirds than anything else, than the punks and the ratbags. Although, I'll give it to you, you've got a nice looking family, cousin. That's great. But at the end of the day, hey, don't use us, don't dictate to us. Your family were never that privileged. Even if they became part of the elite, by some sort of despicable, cunning, scheming trickery of yours, that's correct. Where you what? Where you, of course, use your connection to Mr. Willow, the barrister, and also the police officers, that's correct, who are part of the Red Demon, part of their organization. There's a lot of people in the system, they're officials, that are part of that organization, I've discovered. You got police officers, that's right, applying their harmful protocols, they're actually associates. You've got, barristers, you've got judges as well, that's correct. You've even got staff at the hospital, paramedics, you name it. It's crazy. How they're all associates. They're applying the harmful protocols. And you know what it really boils down to? Do you know the real reason why? It's because they're all sex addicts. And they all suffer from the mental disorder of erotomania, except nobody's going to admit to that. Because after all, they're just nothing more than just a bunch of punks and ratbags. That's correct. I know. It's done all under the table. It's done all in the background. Nobody dare says anything. Nobody ever says anything about your cousin because, your cousin is so manipulative and conniving. Just like your mom. They all seem to have something in common. Your second sister doesn't say anything. That's correct. They all seem to conspire against you and go behind your back. That's correct. And disrespect you, but also dictate to you and your privileges. Where if you say the wrong thing, they're going to discipline you through some arsehole or some wanker or some son of a bitch that are their associates. That's correct. And you know, that's so fucking rude and disgusting. That's correct. Hey, I might swear I've earned the privilege. I've earned the privilege. Well, I'm 49 years old now. That's correct. And I got every right to preach in the manner that I do. Why? Because I'm faithful. Yes, I'm faithful. You know, and this is probably the problem why nobody wants to live among the ratbags. Because if they're sociopaths, they're sociopaths. They can't handle anything that you say. Especially women. You know, they don't have any speaking rights. They don't have any freedom of speech. In fact, they've got more be silent. Silent one. They take away their voices. Oh, thank God they don't take away their tongues. That's correct. Let alone their, sex privileges. Well, other types of privileges. But the privileges where they have a right to speak, to voice their views, to say whatever they can say. There's no such privilege. You got to behave yourself. That's correct. You got to play by the rules. You got to play by the rules, of course. That's correct. Indeed. It's all about control. It's all about control. Controlling your women. That's correct. Making sure that the men, are respected all the time and are made to feel like, they are in charge and in control. Whereas the women are also, being controlled and oppressed. That's great. Sadly. Well, I mean, they get used to it, of course. They don't have much choice, do they? I mean, after all, they're all slaves. Yeah, somebody's what? And yet they've got the nerve to target you and think they can dictate to you on their level. And yet their level is no class. Did you know that? Your class is 0. You don't align with me. I'm above the upper classes. I'm above the elite. I'm a noble. That's correct. So that's why I'm a natural noble pastor. So that means I'm a royal pastor, a royal shepherd, a snow shepherd. That's correct. And advanced, far more advanced than any of you. As for the rest of you, you're neither a sheep nor a shepherd. You can only be a wolf or a Dracula, or a goat or a goat. Now, I know that, what do you call it? Book of Revelation, chapter 22, that I only just started reading it as part of my 6RA rules, states very clearly, who has right of access to the tree of life and river of life? Do the ratbags and the punks and the outlaws have a right to access the tree of life and the river of life that the Bible talks about, that comes from the throne of God, where the Lamb of God is at? Do they have that privilege? Are they even allowed to go there? No, it's a big fat no. It's a big fat no. 9. No. You don't belong there. You don't belong there, and you will not have access there. That's correct. Why? Well, because you guys are the ones that don't respect God, don't respect Jesus, and you're not likely to respect Queen Snow Brown or Holy Mother. You're like Satan? You're like Satan. You'll be disobedient. You'll disobey any instructions or any so-called commands from above. No, that you'll override and overrule any authority that comes from the higher authority, the supreme authority of God and His Son, let alone His Mother. That's correct. No, like Satan, they're likely to overrule, override, and possibly deny the authority of God. So for that reason, and also they're not likely to abide by the 10 Commandments. That's correct. So what on earth are you guys doing entering my kingdom? Crystal Kingdom. That's correct. Do you know that This kingdom of mine and even my play, it's not for children. It's actually not for children. It's more for meek adults, meek reborn Christians. That's great. I suddenly realized that. But children are also, the precious little munchkins are part of my Snow King Club congregation. And the special, what's called the special lots. And the, what else? And the sorry lots. So that the Snow King Club congregation is a reborn congregation. That's great. So that means we do not sin, we do not commit crimes. That's great. And it's for the 10 Commandments, and of course, there are other rules, more advanced learning, but that's only reserved for myself and my private monarch. That's great. So as for the rest of you, you all know that the rules are universal. That's great. And being a reborn ministry, but it's actually a private monarch also. Does that mean that anybody can apply my rules? Well, not really. Commoners are not allowed. Well, actually, it's better for commoners not to enter my church TV, because you see, is you're going to take offense, and then you're going to want to harm me. That's correct. Like the rat bags, and the punks. So they are called incorrigible, right? They're like Satan. If Satan doesn't like God or Jesus, he's going to harm them. Now that is why his ass was kicked out of heaven. That's correct. So he doesn't belong there. So likewise, if you happen to be part of the so-called the kingdom of Satan, which is the prince of darkness, then you don't belong in any kingdom. Heavenly kingdom. That's correct. So just because my Crystal Kingdom Church TV is established in a social media platform does not mean you have a right to enter. No, you don't. It's only privilege for nobles, royals, and also for reborn Christians, or also for Christians are from noble families. That's great. Royals. But in this case, I would say educated sheeps. Bright, smart cookies. That's correct. Smart Christians, smart shepherds. That's correct. The ones that are not likely to harm the so-called founder and the director, let alone the natural pastor that runs it. So here's what I'm going to say to Dad's side of the family. Mr. and Mrs. Baker, that's my cousin's parents. That's correct. Respectfully, you know what? You're 70s. You're 70 plus years old. That's correct. But you are typical Samoans. You're typical coconuts. That's correct. And respectfully, you tend to do things according to the Samoan way of life. I mean, the cultural aspect of to respect your elders. And I'm sorry, I don't go down that road. I don't go down that road. So I might be I was formerly a member of the Treviranus clan or the Treviranus family. So I might be a niece, but you see, consider my age 49 years old. Now, I've never been part of your immediate family in terms of any functions or any dealings with you personally. That's great. I've always minded my business. I've never attended any of your functions unless I've been asked by my parents or somebody in my family. Now, that's great. So I've never really been that close to your family of 5 children. My cousin and his siblings are probably closer to my other 6 siblings, so they got on really well. And that's probably why they didn't get dealt so much, because they got on really well. And also, well, you know, you both liked my other siblings better, especially my second sister. They've got a weakness for your second sister. No, they love my other siblings, especially my brother and my second sister. So they're not likely to torture them or to give you the nonsense and the rubbish that they've been doing through their other harmful, crimmies, or so-called bad connections. That's correct. The red demon and the white demon. I wonder why that they could harm you. That's correct. And yet they haven't got the heart, let alone the guts to do it, let alone the backbone to do it to your second sister, let alone your dearest brother, that's correct, who's married to a Pākehā, born and bred Irish lady, that's correct, who's blondie and looks like a model, that's correct. Maybe that might be the reason why. Well, maybe it's because, well, they'll get it, of course, from Roshi, from your brother's wife's family. If they ever try anything, that's great. So that's why, and maybe the reason why they doubt to you so many times was Mr. Prick, was the bad connection to Mr. Prick. That's correct. And also, I think the undermining of you, the fact that you looked indigenous, so you could pass as a Māori order, that's correct. So that's why they thought, oh, wow, this big elephant, we can do what we like because we can get away with a lot. That's correct. She won't, nobody's going to take her seriously. My goodness. How charming. Man, you guys deserve the death penalty, all right? Even after you told them to stop what they're doing, what happened on the 10th of December just recently? When I went out? I know. They sealed the death penalty. Well, they tried to. Against you, through Mr. Dark Vader looking son of a bitch. That's correct. I really had nothing to do with him anyway. Like, I don't even know the guy, and I don't even hate him. I mean, as a Christian, we're supposed to what? We're supposed to love that's hard to love somebody that wants to kill you, that wants to put you in your grave. That's correct, that you got nothing to do with. And then, of course, the maniac is going to take offense if I say something about him on my church TV. But I'm like, hello, do I know you? Who the fuck are you? That's correct. And why the fuck did you do that for? What did I ever do to you? That's correct. That's why those conditions are inside my church TV. That's why you guys ought to stay the fuck out of it. That's correct. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. You ought to give those kind of decisions to your own evil slaves that are similar to you, like from other criminal organizations. Hey, the police officer, the one that violated you? Now, he deserves that kind of decision. And even Mr. Willow. And even your cousin. And even your cousin's dad. Because they're so bloody evil. And especially this one next door. Now, he definitely, Mr. Brooke, deserves that kind of decision. But you do not deserve that. That's correct. Now, I'm not evil. I'm not among. I don't deal with any evil people. I don't go seeking them out either. I might say, evil things, preach the way that I do. But you need to understand something. Maybe there are evil people that are invading my digital devices. That's correct. They're inside my church TV. I wouldn't preach this way if you guys weren't invading my privacy, let alone hijacking me on my digital devices. That's correct. You shouldn't even enter. Do you know I have no desire to come seeking your attention, let alone friendship among evildoers like you guys? Who are the most dangerous people that seal death penalties upon anybody, any day, at any time of the day? And I mean, you could be, preaching inside somewhere, and they seal the death penalty. You could be going into the hospital, seal the death penalty. You could be waiting in the reception area somewhere. Or you're going to get KFC or something like that. They seal the death penalty. And you kind of like wonder, you know what? Hey, do I look like a gang member? Do I look like one of your so-called, that's great, regulars? Then why the fuck do you need to seal that over me, eh? Take it back. That's correct. You know what I mean? That's correct. Hey, deal with your own sort and your own kind. Do you see me riding there on a motorway? Like those, whatever Hell's Angel you call them? Man, can you see how they just seem to fly through that motorway like they own the bloody motorway? That's correct. It's over 160 kilometers there they're driving. Hey, if those guys, that's correct, can do that, and even the police can't stop them to arrest them for speeding, then you can all get the hell out of the way, out of my Facebook, out of my kingdom, and let me pass peacefully, but let me get on with what I'm supposed to get on with. Because you're in the fucking way. You're in the fucking way. That's correct. So I've discovered. Can you imagine that? Your cousin and those so-called gang bashers? That's great. They have the nerve to think they can dictate to you. You know, this is probably why nobles like me and other educated women don't want to marry any more loser, a wanker and a bastard and a son of a bitch these days, because all they want to do is control women, control them. All they want to do is oppress them and control them and make them unhappy. That's correct. And sabotage their so-called free will, you know? They don't let them fly. Hey, women that marry, hey, they seem to be a lot more happier. And, of course, it depends who they're married to. You see, the women just fly. Look at Reverend Dr. Juanita Bynum. That's correct. You see how she can preach the way that she can preach? And all because her husband lets her, fly. Lets her fly. That's great. He doesn't control her preaching. He doesn't control her on a digital device and invade her privacy. That's great. He lets his woman, he lets his madam, his lady, fly. That's great. Hi. Nobody in the way. No, that's right. There's no evildoer there to stalk the hell out of her. They don't dictate to her how she's going to conduct her social sermons. But these bloody son of a bitches, that's great. Oh, they're bad news, all right. They certainly are. When you think about dad's so-called, brothers, they're just as bad. They're just as bad. You know, the problem I've discovered with married men is that they're constantly wanting to control other women. There might be single or other women that are in other women's wives and other women that are single. But Arlene, hello, you got your own woman. Why do you need to control somebody else's property? That's correct. That you don't own. And this is why people end up dead. Wives become widows and husbands become widows. And it's because some other prick who's already taken, and some other, bitch as well. Sorry, I need to talk this way. Who's already taken, is wanting to take over, is wanting to hijack somebody else's property. You wanting to dictate, but hijack, that's great. You got no right to go there. And that's why some of you deserve the death penalty and also an assault from people. Because you need to learn your boundaries. When I think about the police officer, the bad police officer, that I actually think he was the one that probably sent Mr. Dark Vader. That's correct. I wouldn't be surprised to see the death penalty over you. You see how he crosses boundaries? And I'm thinking, hey, why don't you do that to your wife if you got one? Why don't you, it takes, yes, right. If you're tempted on the work, send some text to your wife. That's great. But leave the people that are in custody alone. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Can you imagine that? The nerve and the audacity. How he's able to behave himself. That's right. Straighten himself out. And not do any of that evil. Make him look like he's really decent and respectable in front of everybody else. And yet he goes and pulls a little stunt like that. A real evil stunt like that. Over somebody, that's correct. That he knows that nobody's going to believe. That's correct. Of course. Only if they have to, of course, conduct an investigation. And obtain telecommunications in a video. Then you got no case. Then you got no case, buddy. That's correct. Then it's a straight death penalty. Then it's a straight death penalty. That's correct. Your dad's brothers, right? Uncle Matthew, Auntie Mele, Uncle Matthew, and Uncle Hines. That's correct. And even Uncle Ray and Uncle Busby, right? All four of you, you got no rights to dictate to my privileges. Right? Right. That goes for Uncle Fatia. I shouldn't even call any of you uncles because, after all, I'm a noble now. You guys are just commoners. You guys are just blimmin' commoners. That's correct. In comparison to this noble, right? I'm a full royal. And you guys are just commoners. And I can damn well tell you where to go. But you see how that you can say goodbye to your side of the family? Because you're not only violent, you may not show your violence in front of me. but you do through your so-called criminal associates. Like M&B, brackets, white demon, that's correct. You're so cunning. I know, Dad's brothers are so typical. Typical, English brutes. Typical English brutes. If you're bully, I'm called kia. And they think they know better than you, and they think they know better than you. Hey, just because you're older than me, I'm 49 now. I'm catching up to your age, but I know a hell of a lot more than a lot of you. That's right. Well, Uncle Matthew, you don't have a degree at the university. No, he never went to university to get a piece of paper. That's correct. Although you do have a qualification in husbandry, I think, or farming. But it's not good enough. Not in comparison to my qualification. Not good enough, that's correct. And of course, in comparison to my intellectual property and my status, there's nowhere near it. That's correct. But you got a good job, though. So I hear now you work for the Department of Corrections. And how did you get that job anyway? That's right. My dad got you the job as a warden, periodic detention. Batoni, that's correct. And then, of course, you worked your way up. And eventually, you got a better job. That's correct. Like most people, when they get promoted. So who should you thank? Thank your brother. Thank your eldest brother. Oh, they do forget, don't they? Yes, they do. And what's with the other one? Oh, Busby, right. The youngest one. You don't have a piece of paper from university, did you? No, you never went to university. Right. Comparison to me? Oh, there's no comparison. Again, that's correct. You know more? You know more! It's correct. Oh, if you pull it my way, Loa. Saan ko if you pull it my go momontos nga. Usuwain. Go makaifale. Go moikolo. Oh, you name it. Now, who's the next one? Uncle Heinz. You never went to university, did you? No, you never did. You haven't got a qualification piece of paper. Now, you got a plaque, of course. You got a plaque from work for 40 years or 30 years service. Yeah. But you don't have a qualification. You got no guts. You could have gone to university and got a what? A piece of paper? And you think you know more than me? You think you know how to dictate to my Facebook? Dictate to my privileges through, say, likes of Cardinal John Juke, Archbishop, just because you're an ordained deacon? Did you know that an ordained deacon doesn't know a damn thing about a natural pastor? The difference? And you don't know a damn thing about Crystal Kingdom Church TV either? That's correct. We got that sorted out, all right? Now, who's the next one? Now, Geraint, that's correct. You've never been to university, have you? No. You got 4 kids. They've never been to university to get a degree. That's correct. Piece of paper. Well, mind you. What's that? That's correct. So you've had good jobs. But again, thanks to somebody. That's correct. Oh, they do forget. They do forget. And the problem with Dad and Uncle Fatia, well, he's never been to university. But your aunt, Auntie Hopi, well, of course she has. She's got a degree, that's right. Early childhood, that's correct. So at least she's got qualification. But that still doesn't give any rights to any of them to dictate to you and your privileges, that's correct. As for your cousin, has she got a piece of paper from university? Despite she's got a good job, of course, at the moment. No, she did try to finish a course, but she couldn't finish it, that's correct. Well, I can understand why. If she rubbed skin with the likes of elites like that one over there, Mr. Willow, that kind of connection, well, who needs a degree? If you can fuck an elite, that's correct. Who needs a piece of paper that's only good for wiping out your backside? That's correct, let alone burn in the fire. Now, who's the next one? Oh, well. Your wife's, good jobs. Yes, again. That's right, Auntie Lana. Well, she got a master's degree. I'll tell you right now, it took her 5 years to get her degree there at Kansas University. Gosh, I wouldn't like to think what she was up to in Kansas University over there in the States. That's correct. And then, of course, she got lucky and married Mr. Hines, Mr. Yoke. That's correct. And had 2 beautiful children. And then, of course, Mrs. Yokes forgets She didn't know how to cook. She didn't know how to cook. Oh my gosh, her cooking was bad when she first started. When she initially first when she got married to Mr. Yoke. That's correct. In fact, she was terrible. Most areas of her life was terrible. Wasn't that good? Wasn't that good? And now look what Mr. Yoke did. That's correct. Now she's got a master. You know, without Mr. Yoke, without if it wasn't for your husband, you wouldn't achieve a lot of things. You wouldn't be blessed. That's great. You'll be so lucky. That's correct. And get a job, good jobs. That's correct. And succeed in every dream and every aspect of your life. Amen. Amen. So just as why you married the right Pākehā. Mr. Yoke. Indeed. They do forget. They do forget. And then, of course, the irony is I'm thinking, why does Mrs. Yoke not wear any knickers? Hey, well, I really don't care. But the fact that you guys, Mr. and Mrs. Yoke, and I'm talking about Auntie Landa and Uncle Heinz, you guys are the worst example of the worst example of an aunt and an uncle. What do I mean by that? Well, the fact that you actually, I don't know, this is going to sound really weird, but I get the impression that you actually pay people money to dictate to my privileges. And more so to deny my privileges. Did you know that? There's a little mouse or a little devil that's whispering in my ear. That's correct. That's what you do. You do a lot of denying, don't you? Especially this one here next door. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually use the M&B and so the red demon, the white demon. Remember, if your connections is the white ones, then of course that's what they do. You know, they listen in to people's conversations, and if they don't like what they say, especially their friends, of course, then of course they're going to dictate and deny their privileges and harm them also. And possibly also give them the death penalty. Like poor Sarah, that's correct. Yeah, poor Sarah and her brother Natu. What happened to them? How come they ended up dead? That's correct. I never thought in my wildest dream that Sarah would go. And I'm thinking my friend here, Mr. Baker, whom I've managed to, of course, being a qualified natural pastor, I was able to rescue him and convert him to an archangel. That's correct. Now, Mr. Yoke, Uncle Heinz, you know what? You can't do those sort of things. That's correct. But you see, this is how cunning my dad's brothers are. And my cousin as well, especially her parents. They'd all been listening into your private conversations, all right? They know all there is to know about your private affairs and what you say in secret. So what they do is that because they're so thick and stupid anyway, that's correct, and that a lot of them haven't got a piece of paper from a university, what do? They apply your ideas. That's correct. They go and actually apply your ideas because they know they'll get lucky or they get blessed. They get blessed because they know you're a whawhiao naturally. That's correct. How cunning? How cunning! And yet they would never ever bless you by giving you, say, $1,000, let alone anything of the sort. That's correct. Or something that you would generally give to a whawhiao. But I mean, hey. I'm glad that I'm not part of the family anymore, that I left you guys, but you need to stop sending me the kind of nonsense that I'm getting through your criminal, bad connections. I don't need it. I don't need it. You must have been a dumping ground for them. Yeah, I was. They actually used you so that they could get ahead and also to protect themselves and also to show off to their so-called, Palangi friends. That are actually trashy, that's great, and are also harmful. So I gathered. My goodness, the trivia, incredible. They're incredible, right? What's the other thing? You know what? I'll say this as a pastor. Because they set you up. They did set you up with Mr. Brick back in 96. Almost every sister of dad, right, you all lost your virginity. You all lost your virginity before you got married. Did you know that? And I only say that because why? Well, because if you're do you know that if you guys had respected my mom, her royal status. That's great. I wouldn't have been ill-treated and I wouldn't have received all the atrocities that I'd been dealt to here in this country. Did you know that? That's great. Is your bad example or a bad example? Dad's brothers, siblings, brothers and sisters, because because of her royal status. That's great. They then decided that they would dictate your privileges and control you like a slave. That's great. And harm you even like a slave via their so-called, like the example, the bad connections. Their bad connections through the Webster side, which is the red demon, brackets, white demon. That's great. Ngolo lea, le seki oi, kau seki oi, galwele loko leanga. Nga omea leanga lava, au mai le ingolo dad, that's great. Through their bad connections to you, and yet you don't go looking for bad connections. Se vai lako mengo set you up in 2001 with the computer course, and then they set you up again in 96. That's correct. With Mr. Prick. And yet Mr. Prick is married. So I've later discovered, but also I wasn't interested in sex at all. I was ready for sex at the age of 42, but hey, I didn't need to now. That's correct. All I wanted was to be married and be happy, that's right, and have a family. And it looks like that side of the family, they were denying you those privileges. They were trying to deny you your privileges. Se vai ngofo fasioki ya Mr. Baker. Archangel Mr. Baker, Warren Baker. And all because of their jealousy, they didn't want you, to hook up with a Pākehā. That's correct, with a Palangi. Because Mr. Baker's family he's got a good family. That's correct. Can you imagine how your uncle there in Timarua and your aunt in Timarua would be so jealous? And this is why your cousin and the rest of their so-called criminal got their so-called criminal associates and members to stalk you on your digital devices, to know about your private affairs and private business. So that they were trying to deny it. So once they discovered that you were dating a Pākehā, because it looks like they wanted you to hook up with some rat bag who might be of indigenous, like a coconut or a puha. That's great. Can you imagine that? Or somebody that was somebody like a married man. That's great. I wonder why your cousin and the rest of the family are so freaking evil. Can you imagine what they do? How they go and tell people, things so that they can deny you your privileges. And yet you never do that. You don't go and stalk them. Let alone find out what they're up to. Let alone hack into their digital devices, to try and see who they're connecting with and what they're saying about other people or what they're getting up to. Now they seem to know too much. They know way too much about you. That's correct.